Three of them are pretty
You need
strict.
a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
We can do that, sure.
I'll move it as treasurer, I'll make the motion.
All right, second.
Second from Mr. Stage. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, treasurer report is approved, thank you. Then moving on to the request for payments, we have three items to pay. One big one and a couple small ones. The first one is a request for payment to, and it's actually not to the city of Delaware. The city of Delaware is administering this grant, but they are not the payee. The payee is the actual vendor who did the work. It's North American Environmental Services. The amount is correct, and the work has been done, and again, compliments to Diane Gunther, and well, the whole Delaware staff is working on this project, I know. But the asbestos remediation work is done, and that is very encouraging, because that's the next step in the Sunny V renovation. And I know they're already, we'll get into it later, but they're already working on the demolition grants, to get the demolition work done. But anyway, that's the first one. Second one is to Ray and Associates for the audit, I think it's the final payment, isn't it right, Karen? Okay, the final payment that's due to Ray and Associates for their audit of the land bank, $1,470. And then the last one is Scott Gordon's Legal Services, $112.50. We've
There's
not
a
had a whole
question
lot
mark
of
by that, is
legal
there a
work.
reason, is it combined as a question mark, or is that?
Good question. I didn't notice the question mark.
I'm not sure where it came
Yeah, I see the question mark, I don't know.
Yeah,
from.
yeah.
I just clarify, is there?
Probably
a
wondering why it's
question?
so small or something. but
Yeah. We question the question mark. So anyway, those are the three invoices. I would, I don't know if anybody has any further discussion. We will be reimbursed from the Ohio Department of Development for the $55,000 check to North American Environmental Services. And again, once we make that payment, then Diane Gunther can submit submit for reimbursement. And that should come quickly. She said they've been turning them around fairly quickly, so that's good. So anyway, any comments? I would entertain a motion to approve all three at once. Hey, Dave?
I'll second.
Second from Gary. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. Karen, do you have the checkbook now? Okay, great. I will go ahead and sign those after the meeting. Next one is the demolition and brownfield project updates. Lot going on in that, and that's really our main focus right now. I did send out the email to all the local jurisdictions, a copy of which was sent out with the, or I'm not sure it was sent out with the package, but anyway, everybody got it earlier. And that just kind of describes where the situation is, where we are now. In short, basically the first round of funding for both demolition and brownfield expires on June 30th of '24. And in our demolition grant applications for the first round, we applied for $500,000 of grant funding, and we only needed a little over 200. All the projects that we did came in significantly under budget, which is great, because that leaves us with roughly $298,000 of additional funding that can be used for what is now being called replacement projects. Those can't be projects that have been, that the demolition has already been started, even though the contracts can be in place. Demolition can't have started yet. And we've received inquiries from based on that memo and conversations, and I know a lot of us have talked to a lot of the jurisdictions. Based on that, we've received a number of projects that are interested in applying in this second round. But again, the work has to be done by June 30th of 2024. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't still get a grant, but in this round of funding, that $298,000 has to be spent basically by the end of June of 24. Or we lose it. But there is a round two, which we'll get into in a little bit. But anyway, Diane did provide a nice summary, like she always does, of the work that has been done on the various demolition and brownfield projects that are underway. All 6 of the demolition projects are done. She has received some inquiries from various jurisdictions about doing some replacement project demolition work.
Could she get that list out to us?
I'm sorry, what, Dave?
I said, could she get that list out to us?
Well, it's in the memo that she sent out.
Is it?
Yeah, at the very end, she lists who she's been contacted by. And this was sent out a few days ago, so it doesn't have, for instance, the Genoa application in there. She hadn't received that when she prepared this.
I sent that to her yesterday,
Yesterday.
everything.
Friday.
Sent her what I had.
Yeah.
Could I, for information, could I pass this out? This is a, we'll call it pro forma Excel spreadsheet that describes the project. It's just a brief. for
Now, did
information
you do
purposes.
this, or is this Diane's schedule?
I did.
Okay, you did.
Or I think that's the schedule for you.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It looks familiar. I didn't know if it was actually hers.
And the reason I'm passing this out is this provides, I think, a pretty succinct description of what they want to do. Also, Diane and Al have the architect studies, engineering studies, the letters of access, that kind of thing. I can send to you.
Is this a project that can be done by June next year?
Mhm. Yeah, but it's been vacant. It's the old police.
Yeah, I didn't know if they were in a position to move forward on it.
Yeah, they're ready to go.
Good, good.
They could move, they could start today.
Yep.
In fact, they may start pretty quick if they don't hear from us, so.
Yeah. Well, Diane is the key. She did an outstanding job of administering the first 6 that we got done earlier this year. So if she's already received the information, then she can be in contact with Paul Wise, presumably, at
Yes.
Genoa. And you know, she's the expert. She's worked it.
Okay.
They've done it. Again, the ODOD initially was pretty slow in responding, but as they figured out their rules and regulations, and we, and Diane in particular, figured out how to present information and so on, because they asked for a lot of information, which is understandable. It worked very smoothly, and got reimbursements processed very quickly.
Okay.
So I think, again, this is good to see, because we've got that 298,000 sitting there that will expire next June if we don't find projects. I know.
When we last met, I misheard. I thought it was 98, not 298. I didn't realize we had 60% of it left, so.
Yeah. And even then, if something, gets delayed, we still have another 500,000 starting July 1st of '24.
Well, I just know from discussions that the project in Powell that we did, there's still apparently quite a bit of work that needs to be done there,
Oh, is there?
according to Zinhos.
Okay.
So I know he's going to be interested in going after some of this second round money
Okay, good.
with City Powell, for sure.
Yeah, and again, it's encouraging. I mean, this is what the Land Bank's mission is to help with these problem properties, and we're getting a lot of them done. We got more identified, and more people are aware of it, so I think that's very helpful as well. So, again, good to see.
Is there anything the board needs to do to have this project considered at this time? or-
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. Diane, is gathering all the information. She'll prepare the estimates and so on.
It is important we identify projects that can be done by June of next
Yeah.
year to use that money up, so.
That's
And
the
if we
key.
have to
Should
make
I
an estimate
com-
of what it's gonna cost, so we know what we got left,
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
because that's not that far away.
We're down to, with lead times to get the paperwork done, we're probably down to 6-7 months at the most, so.
Yeah.
Should I call her then after this meeting, or will this trigger her getting in touch with Paul, or what should
Well,
what's the protocol?
You can certainly do that. I was going to reach out to her anyway, just to kind of update her on the status of the meeting in general, and I will mention that to her.
Okay.
And if you've already sent it to her, my guess is it's in her particular list to work on.
Okay.
Some of the others that we've received, and I know Justin Navi, our finance director for the county, you are working with Diane, aren't you? Maybe you can come up to the microphone
Thanks, Commissioners. Justin Navi, Director of Finance. I've been corresponding with Diane on 2 projects for the county. They're both fuel tank removals, one at the old county garage facility, and then the second's at the Channing Street facility. The item I've been talking to Diane about is they have to be certified as not being a brownfield site. The contractor working on the Channing Street already did some research on that and verified it. And then I'm still waiting for feedback on the county garage facility, which I'm certain is not a brownfield site either. And then I've been asking Diane when we can get started because we're already under contract for both of those fuel tank removals, so we can move on those once the grant agreement's executed.
Okay,
So
good, good.
What's the dollar amount on those?
each one's about between 40 and 50,000. And the nice thing is it's, yeah.
Yeah, so I think as we flesh these projects out and determine timing, we may need to have another land bank meeting because we may end up over 300,000, in which case we'll have to prioritize and push 1 or 2 of them back or just let them go ahead without demolition grant
Right.
reimbursement.
And trying to get this
Movement of
moved
the-
as quickly as possible, because the Channing Street site,
Yep.
Homeport wants to move on
Yep.
that pretty quickly.
Yep, yep.
So,
What was the deadline for this application?
There's no real deadline for the application. The project just has to be done by June 30th.
Okay. So when we get a number of projects that would surpass the amount there, that's when we would start
Yep.
prioritizing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And that's, again, Diane's gotten alerted to a number of sites, so she's probably gathering some information, and we may need to meet in October or November, and at that point, we
Yeah,
should have.
I think if, depending on availability and timing, if we have projects that are ready to go, I think we'd be doing it a service if we didn't meet to approve the individual projects instead of trying to get a complete
Yep,
group of them together, because that may take more time.
agreed, agreed. So, we'll rely on communication with Diane, but thank you, Justin, for the
And
updates.
I'm sorry, Jeff, before you go on, I have a question for Scott. I intentionally didn't send this out to all of the board members, because I didn't want you fussing at me for trying to have a electronic meeting. So could I have sent this, just?
Information can be conveyed to the
Information,
board, but there
okay.
can't be a discussion. The discussion needs to
Alright.
happen
We
within
wouldn't
this
be able
type
to
of
respond.
public meeting forum.
Okay, all right,
Yep.
so noted.
Couple of the others, just, again, just kind of discuss them. The Delaware County EMA office has a couple projects, a couple of homes that are in floodplains, and they need to come down. There's some FEMA money available to help with that, but the actual demolition work could be eligible for a grant reimbursement. And like Justin mentioned before, Homeport is anxious to get moving on the Channing Street project, and there is a demolition a garage, I think it is, that needs to be demolished over there, so that's.
I'm sure all the area behind there, the sheds and the,
Yeah, I think that's what they're talking about. City of Powell, Dave, you mentioned it earlier. City of Delaware, I know Kyle's not here, but I know they're thinking about, maybe they'll have some additional sites. Village of Sunbury, they did change staff, and Diane's gonna reach out to them. Village of Ashley, Village of Ashley, I have had, I think, you had some conversations as well, conversations with the mayor. There are 2 properties in the Village of Village of Ashley that they are working on to get demolition agreement in place with private property owners. One of them is I'm sure if you've driven into Ashley, you'll notice it, it's a rundown garage on the left side, the west side of 42
South
as you
of
go
the
in. And they said they have an agreement in place to demolish it using some of these grants, and then they've got another property in Ashley that they're working on getting an agreement. So, again, Diane, and I gave them all Diane's contact information, they just have not reached out to Diane yet, so my guess is they aren't ready to move forward at this point. Mill on Flax is, they have a building that needs to come down. We've made them aware of the land bank grant opportunities, and at this point, we're just working with the city of Delaware to see if they're able to do it. They may not want to wait, because I know they're anxious to get going on their property, but And that's all I've heard. Anybody else? Michelle,
No.
any further discussions? Dave, any others? Gary?
Nothing else I'm aware of.
No, Jeff, I will say that based on the preliminary discussions I've had with Zinnios, it's not gonna be an insignificant amount of money.
Oh, really?
When he puts his application together.
Would it be brownfield related or would it be demolition work?
Well,
still?
it's continuation of the demolition project that they did
Okay,
of the old liquor store. That they
Right,
did with
right.
the city. Apparently there was a
Is that
lot
there
of
on
work.
Liberty?
Pardon?
Is that there, is that
yeah,
on Liberty?
just north side of
Yeah,
downtown.
it's west of Liberty and I'm gonna say a block north
Yeah.
of 750, right downtown. Whoever he was partnering with the first time, he's no longer working with on it, but, they omitted a lot of things that could have been addressed in the original grant, but weren't. Primarily that dealt with, getting the site back to a point where they move ahead with the next phase of their project, I mean, things like curb cuts and, that kind of stuff, some mounding, landscaping, whatever,
Right.
that they need to. So it's gonna be a large ask, assuming he goes ahead with it.
Good, they know about it, they've had experience.
And he's aware.
Okay. So that's the status of the current round one, if you will, demolition and brownfield grants. Now, let's back up, I want to talk about the brownfield. We just approved the $55,000 payment for the asbestos work that was done at Sunny B. That work is completed. They are, like I said, they are in the process of getting quotes for the demolition work, and they're expecting those to be available in the next couple weeks, in early October. And at that point, they'll move ahead with the demolition work, and that will really end the land bank's involvement in that project. And at that point, the project, or the property goes back to Jeff Stanford, anyway, Stafford, and he'll begin his renovation work presumably. So anyway, very, very good to see that finally coming to fruition. So that's it for the brownfield and demolition updates. The next phase, round two, is what we're calling it, demolition and brownfield project. We have received the lead entity designation as required by the Ohio Department of Development. They require, in the round one, they did not require the land bank to be the lead entity in both the demolition and brownfield, but in round two, they are requiring it. No big deal, it's really just a designation. But we have received official word that we are the lead entity designation. We are the lead entity for any brownfield and demolition grants that happen in the round two. Round two, like I said, starts July 1st of 2024. The brownfield, there is $1 million guaranteed to each county for the next 2 years, the next 2 fiscal years. There is $500,000 guaranteed for the demolition grant just for fiscal 24-25. But there's every expectation that it will be renewed. There'll be another $500,000 in 25-26. But initially, it's only officially for the first fiscal year. Let's see, so anyway, we talked about the inquiries. Hopefully, we can get some, if not most of those done before June of '24, so they don't, so we maximize the use of the funding that's available in round one for demolition. Now, the affordable housing grants, there is legislation in the budget bill that was passed that provided the brownfield and demolition grant funding. There is legislation in there for affordable housing grants. However, it is first of all, we don't have the rules yet. They're not expected to come out probably till January of '24. There are a number of things about the affordable housing grants that made it, at least at the land bank meeting I went to, they just didn't think that it would be very usable. So we don't really expect it to be very viable at this point. The grants have to be repaid over a certain time period. The maximum grant's $30,000. There's a 20-year compliance requirement from the original owners as well as all subsequent owners. They have to be under the 80% AMI designation. There's just a lot of restrictions that make it fairly unusable. So they didn't expect it really to have much use. But they're going to try to go back to the legislature and get them to change some of those topics or some of those restrictions. I did actually personally have a conversation with Senate President Matt Huffman to let him know that we didn't think the restrictions made it very viable. And then also actually with Department of Development Director Lydia Mihalik, again, just to make sure they understood that we thought that that legislation needed to be changed and just make them aware of it. Hopefully they'll support making the changes to make it more usable. But anyway, and even round 2 of the demolition of Brownfield, they're still saying they have to prepare their rules and regulations and submit, let all the land banks know. We have not seen those yet. Expect to see them in the near future. We expect them to be very similar, if not identical, to round 1 in terms of the process and the timing and everything. So anyway, that's the latest. We did, on the DTAC funds update, we did receive $7,380.75 on September 12th, I think it was. And so that's in the bank. Foreclosure update, there is one foreclosure listed in the prosecutor's folder, but the prosecutor, when she sent this over, said that this one had been sold. So we officially have none on the tax foreclosure process list. I don't know, Dave, anything out of the treasurer's office?
No, I thought maybe we might have, but the city, the 612 South Sandusky property that's been at the old Clark Station, I think it was a Clark Station.
Yeah, yeah.
I talked to Tom and Kyle, and Tom got back to me and he said that with everything else they have on their plate, they just weren't ready to move on that right now, so it's just still gonna be sitting there.
I noticed they've done some work on it.
Yeah, they did demo the building under a nuisance permit, and I think they have been doing some, weed cutting and that kind of thing, but.
But the pumps, the tanks and all still there.
Yeah, yep, yeah, that'll be, that's something that I would expect wouldn't be covered under the demo grant, that'd have to come out of the Bureau of Abandoned Fuel Tanks or whatever it is, and I don't know what their funding status is today, so.
Well, they at least, I know Kyle knows at least that this is a possible, the
Yeah, he's aware.
brownfield is a possible alternative.
Yeah, he's aware.
To help clean up that property. I think that's about it from me on the agenda. Scott, anything else? Michelle?
I don't have anything.
Do we need to identify a date in anticipation of having to discuss some of these properties, maybe 30 days from now or so? Or?
I would say let's just hold tight until we get it a little further down the road and Diane has a little better feel for what's available, but we'll get those. I'm guessing it'll probably be November, but again. David, anything else? Okay. All right, well, with no further business,